Hi everyone, welcome again to another episode of Real Estate Talk. Today I'm with Debbie Bannister, who is from Exchange Resources, and we're going to discuss something we haven't talked about ever before. It's 1031 exchanges. And 1031 exchanges are when you're selling one property and rolling over the proceeds to other properties to defer
the capital gains.
Yeah. So Debbie, why don't you just start us off? What are a little bit more about what 1031 exchanges are and how do they apply? When do people need to do that?
Okay, perfect. First of all, what a 1031 exchange is, it's a tax shelter that affects only investment real estate. So if you own investment real estate and you want to sell it, this 1031 exchange is a shelter that can allow you to defer all your capital gains tax, thus allowing you to use all your proceeds to buy more property. The way this is utilized is when in the sale process of that investment property, an exchange must be set up in that escrow process. And
so they can't sell a property and then decide to do a 1031.
Once they close escrow, if it's not set up, they lost their opportunity.
Okay, perfect. So this is something definitely to plan for ahead of time.
Absolutely. And from the listing to the time when that property is sold, that's the perfect time to get all your questions answered so that your client can understand what direction they need to go and what they need to think about. So one of the questions that people have is the time clock.
Mm-hmm.
So when a person is engaging in a 1031 exchange, IRS has 2 clocks that they give them to accomplish their exchange successfully. The second clock, I'm going to go backwards, is they get a total of 180 days, and that's to buy, close escrow, and be done.
Okay.
So that's the easy clock. The first clock, they only get the first 45 days of that 180 separated out, and that's to identify the property or properties that they will be buying. So the identification process can be a little ambiguous.
So let me go back one step here. So when do those 180 or 45 days start? What's day one?
Thank you for asking. It's the day after escrow closes.
Okay.
And if they're selling 2 properties that want to go into an exchange, it's the day after the first escrow closes.
So you want to delay both properties to close very close to each other so that,
their timing is pretty close. So the day after escrow closes. So now what's important is that identification period. That's the time not to just be thinking of addresses, but to be presenting offers, getting an offer accepted, even in the sale escrow before escrow closes. So you're ahead of the clock.
Absolutely.
And you can be successful with that time frame once it starts.
So just to clarify, it's not 45 days and then another 180 days. It's 180 days combined.
Absolutely, yes.
And just the first 45 days is when you can identify the list of one or more properties that you're going to buy.
Yes, and there's 2 rules, but the first rule is the most common, and it gives you a limit of up to 3 properties to identify. So that's really essential that once the 45 days are up, if escrow hasn't closed on what you have in escrow, and if something happens and you cannot buy what was identified before the 45 days were up,
you lose.
The exchange is disqualified.
Okay. But just to clarify one other thing, you can buy more than 3 properties.
Absolutely. And that's called
the second rule.
The 200% rule. And the 200% rule is really most useful when you're selling a higher value property and you want to use those proceeds to buy several smaller value properties. So what the method behind this rule is that you would take your sales price. So if you sold for $2 million, you take that sales price and you double it, hence the 200%. And now you have $4 million. Now you do not have to buy $4 million. This just gives you a window of opportunity that you can identify as many properties up to that doubled amount, that $4 million. And then you can buy wherever you want in that group.
Got it. Perfect. What else? What are the other common questions?
The other common question is, how much do I need to buy for?
Okay.
So this is very confusing for a lot of clients, potential clients, because they feel that whatever they clear out of escrow or whatever their gain may be from the sale of this property, that's all they have to invest. But the reality is the tax code specifies that they have to buy equal or greater to defer all their to their sales price, to defer all their capital gains. But they can deduct the cost of sale. So for example, they sell for $540, commission, escrow, title, inspections, recording fees, that's $40,000. So now their net sales price that they need to buy equal or greater to is $500. Now, if they bought less than that, they're okay, they don't hurt their exchange, they pay taxes on that difference.
Okay.
And in that $500, if there was a loan that they had on that property that they sold, then when they buy a new property, they need to get a new loan equal or greater to the loan debt and use all the cash that comes out of the sale, and together that adds up to $500,000.
Okay.
In that example.
What is exempt from being a 1031 exchange?
What
So if
doesn't qualify?
Yeah, no. So if someone had a property, they used to live in it, and now they're using it as an investment property. So we bought a house or we bought a condo, and then they outgrew it. We bought a bigger house, and they kept the condo as an investment, and now they want to sell it. Does this qualify or not?
It qualifies for a 1031, but the timing is important because in the last 5 years of owning it is going to determine what tax shelter this property qualifies for.
Exactly.
So if they lived in it for 4 years and they just started renting it for 1 year, let's say that direction, then they qualify for the primary residence exclusion. And it doesn't matter that the last year was rented because the laws require, or the laws specify, that as long as you, in the last 5 years, you lived in it 2 years, somewhere for 2 years, then you can have that exclusion of $500,000 if you're married, or $250,000 tax-free dollars off the top of the gain. But if, say they rented it, say they lived in it 5 years ago, and they've rented it for 5 years.
Then it's an investment property.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
The last 5 years shows it's investment.
So you have to live in the property 2 of the last 5 years in order for it to be considered a primary residence.
Yes.
You don't need to do a 1031.
Yes.
If you haven't lived in it, personally lived in it, 2 of the past 5 years, and you're looking to, you need to do a
You need to do a
1031
1031.
if you're looking to avoid paying capital gains.
Yes. And there's one caveat, may I say?
Yeah.
This is worth watching this video, is if you had a large gain, so say you had $1 million gain in a property, and you're at a point in your life where you may have a single status, and it's been a primary residence, in the last 5 years, 2 years have been a primary, then you would have to pay taxes on $750,000 because you only get $250 tax-free.
Correct.
If you rent out the last 2 years, then in this situation only, you can have both the primary residence exclusion and the 1031, only in that situation. So you take your exclusion first, and the rest of the gain you can do a 1031 exchange.
Very nice.
So it's
Okay.
really cool.
All right, well, I know you're going to have a ton of questions because this is the first time we've ever talked about 1031 exchanges. We've done several with Debbie and her company, Exchange Resources. They're excellent to deal with. Shoot your questions over. We'll have her respond to them. And if they have any more, or if you'd like to discuss your personal situation with Debbie, we'd be happy to arrange
Absolutely.
contact with her. It's good to have those questions answered before you decide to sell or not, because many times this kind of, it dictates people, are we going to sell or not? What are we going to buy? When are we going to buy? All that stuff. So get your answers questioned as soon as possible before you even put your home on the market, because it's good to know, it's good to plan.
It's good to plan, and I can help with that plan.
Absolutely. We're here for you. We're here to answer your questions. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again next episode.
Bye.